Welcome back to the Hannity primaries. We continue now with former New Mexico Governor Gary Johnson. You run into, I think, problems with the base, legalizing drugs, a couple of other positions.
Legalizing marijuana, talking about harm reduction strategies regarding all the other drugs. So, talking about legalizing marijuana. I came at this issue from a cost-benefit analysis standpoint. Sean, and I'm not telling you anything that you don't recognize, half of what we spend on law enforcement, the courts, and the prisons is drug-related. And to what end? Well, $70 billion a year. We're arresting 1.8 million people a year in this country, and we now have 2.3 million people behind bars. We have the highest incarceration rate of any country in the world. America.
And marijuana is in a different category. But what do you do when people are in a crack-induced state of psychosis, if it's decriminalized or legalized? What do you do with people so needing a fix for heroin that they would kill their own mother? These are predictable results of hard drug use. What do you do then?
Well, first of all, there's an educational process in all this.
If you're too stupid not to stick a needle in your arm or a crack pipe in your mouth, you just lost it. I mean, there's no educating somebody that crack is bad for you. Crack is bad.
Sure, Sean. But you treat it first as a health issue rather than a criminal justice issue. You don't treat it first as a criminal justice issue. These are the people that we know. These are people that we actually care about.
But are we going? Okay, so we're going to provide free health care for them? We're going to provide free heroin, crack?
Let's differentiate between marijuana, though, and harder drugs. What I am advocating is the legalization of marijuana, and having drank alcohol and having smoked marijuana, neither of which I do today because I think they're both handicaps. Yeah. But having done both, I can tell you that there's a big difference between the two, and the big difference between the two is that marijuana is a lot safer than alcohol. Citizens, well, you don't have to agree. Citizens of Denver 5 years ago voted to decriminalize marijuana in Denver on a campaign based on marijuana being safer than alcohol.
Can't these arguments still be made on the crack heroin issue? What do you do in those cases? What are you going to do?
Well, you first look at it as a health issue rather than a criminal justice issue.
You're a fiscal conservative. You're a libertarian. You don't want to pay for their health care, do you?
Exactly, Sean. So listen to me. From a cost-benefit analysis...
Give them the drugs?
Listen, from a cost-benefit analysis, Portugal, 10 years ago, decriminalizes all drug use. In the last 10 years, they have statistically shown a 50% decrease in heroin use.
Wait a minute. Great Britain experimented with the same decriminalization of heroin. And there were other, we talked about this the other way, Needle Park is another failure. But wait a minute.
Let's talk about Needle Park. I mean, I can talk about all these. I can address all these issues.
They also have maintenance issues where the government ends up giving these drugs to these addicts, and the state then becomes the pusher, and we have people that literally are decrepit and no longer live life as a bunch of junkies.
So Chief of Police from Zurich, Switzerland, comes to Albuquerque. This is about 10 years ago. And he said, I'm Chief of Police from Zurich, Switzerland. He said, when they came out with a heroin maintenance program in Zurich, Switzerland.
Free heroin.
Free heroin. Government controlled. You have to get a prescription, but free heroin. Clean needles. The idea was to reduce death, disease, crime, corruption. The things that I think really people care about. He said, when they came out with this program in Zurich, this was crazy. I've been in law enforcement my entire life. All my friends were in law enforcement. We could not have been more opposed to this. Death, disease, crime, corruption was going to skyrocket. He said, I am here today to tell you Zurich is a much better place to live. Right. And citizens of Zurich voted to re-up on that program.
We're not going to convince each other, but
it's a good dialogue. This is something that needs to be talked about in this country.
I think, and I'm going to go back to my original question, and it's my last question, about this is where, on economic issues, I agree with you. We have a slight deviation on some defense issues.
So make the drug argument from an economic standpoint.
But how do you get the conservative base, a lot of which are Christian conservatives, that it is, and to me included, the idea that America would legalize or go down this road is repugnant to me, because I don't think government should have that role in the moral destruction of a human soul, which is predictable by giving them those drugs.
I just want you to put yourself in the position. We talked earlier about the fact that you got a couple of sons. Mm-hmm.
One son, one daughter.
One son, one daughter. Statistically, one of those two are going to smoke marijuana, statistically.
And that will be the one that I beat the living daylights. No, I'm kidding, joke.
Well, no, you are joking. But you want to deal with that problem. You don't want the government dealing with that problem, and you don't want one of your two kids subject. Yes, but that's the existing law as it exists. Yeah. I don't want our kids criminalized for actions
it's mostly a misdemeanor, small amounts of marijuana.
This is the notion that we have, Sean, that we've really kind of put this on the back burner, when the reality is that these laws are also very, very discriminatory. You have
can be crack, powder, cocaine, very distinguished.
Well, you're brought over to the side of the road. You smell marijuana. If you are of color, there's a 4 times more likelihood that you'll end up behind bars for that stop as opposed to being white. These are just realities.
But if you're in a car and you pull over the side of the road and your car reeks of marijuana, I don't want you on the road.
Exactly, and that'll never be legal either. It'll never be legal to smoke pot, become impaired, get behind the wheel of a car, or do harm to others.
Do you not agree with me or see that the conservative base is going to have a hard time with these positions? That's my last question.
Well, it's an educational issue. So in my experience, since I'm the only one out there talking about this, and I've had this field now for about 12 years to myself, what I've found is that it's an issue that's really pretty thin ice. That when people get educated about it just a little bit, everybody seems to move on the issue. Now, people don't move from wanting to implement the death penalty to making it legal, but they move from the death penalty to, well, okay, maybe we don't have to put them to death. I'm just saying, everybody with just a little bit of education on this issue seems to view it in a different way, and that's a good thing, because we've got so many people locked up in this country.
Gary Johnson, it's great to see you.
Sean,
thank you so much for being here.
And thank you very much for having me.
Thanks very much. Hope
you
come back soon.
All right.